The following books, stories, plays, poems, or limericks you will hear on Right Time Radio are the intellectual property of the writers and authors mentioned. Any copying, recording, or reproduction of this work is strictly prohibited without the express written consent of the author. The content of this show is the individual expression of the author and does not necessarily reflect the views of the owner of this radio station.
It's the right time for Right Time Radio. I'm Tom Bruno.
And I'm Lynn
Donovan. Welcome to Right Time Radio every Friday morning at 10 o'clock a.m. live. We're here live at the KRLN studios. We've got a really special guest with us and her husband. I'm going to introduce you to Ann Doolin Fox. Good morning, Ann.
Good morning, guys. It's a pleasure to be in beautiful Canyon City once again.
Now, she didn't say enough this time to get that really good Irish accent.
I heard it, yeah.
You got it.
I love listening to her.
It's great. Now, she's going to be reading from The Celtic Road Home. It's a memoir by Ann Doolin Fox. But we're going to get a lot of chance to chat with Ann also because she's had a very interesting experience. Ann, what was your dream in life? To get where?
To get to the United States of America.
And you finally did it.
I did it. I never gave up when I was a little girl growing up. My first visit actually was in 1985 to New York City. I was a nanny. It only lasted 5 months, but I got to come back again in 1993 with my amazing soulmate who was in the Air Force in Germany, and we got to meet, and I got to come back for good.
Now that soulmate, he's here bodily, not just in soul, is Jimmy, and he's sitting right next to you. Hi, say hi, Jimmy.
Hello, I'm Jimmy.
And Jimmy, you were an officer in the Air Force also, right?
I sure was, yes.
Yeah, Jimmy. When Jimmy and I met at when we met Ann at the the Canyon City Library, just a couple months ago.
Yes.
Yeah, and Jimmy and I found out we were both in the Air Force about the same time.
Yes.
You just stayed a little longer.
I sure did. I'm a retiree.
Yep. And thanks a lot for serving that whole time.
Yes. Thank you for serving.
So, this is a show. Right Time Radio is a show for local authors, local voice actors, local listeners, and it's locally produced here by Carrie, who's over there grinning at us, making
I was looking at this recipe.
eyebrow noises.
Oh,
yes.
We have a recipe. Ann brought us a recipe for Irish coffee.
I was like,
Yes. And so
And it's in the book as well, guys.
since it's all local, we thought Dublin, Ireland is just local enough, I guess. No, Ann and Jimmy now live where?
Colorado Springs.
Colorado Springs. So, want to do a little intro, a little bit about the author here, Miss Lynn?
I do. Ann grew up in Dublin, Ireland in the 1970s. At 18, she left to seek her fortune abroad. Following a long 12-year immerse in foreign lands, she met her soulmate and moved to America for good. Colorado Springs, Colorado is now her forever happy place. Celtic Road Home is her first publication and is also fluent in 4 of 7 languages. And so we've been talking to her about what all those languages are. Tell us what those languages
One
are.
of them is Irish, right?
Actually, that's not the fluent one because it's been too long, but I'm sure it would come back to me if I went home to the Emerald Isle for a while. But the languages, I always associate them with they were the Romance languages. So it's English, of course, and then French, Italian, and Spanish, which are really, the Romance languages. But believe it or not, Irish is actually considered a Romance language. It's one of the languages associated with Germanic languages.
Okay.
So they're very similar, actually.
Interesting.
But yeah, I love music, and growing up, I picked up songs and music very quickly, and I was always good in French and Irish in school, so I always the nerdy kid, the shy kid, but that helped everybody in the last 5 minutes before the Irish and French teacher came into the room. That was me, but I didn't realize it at the time, but it helped me with my languages for sure.
That's great.
Hey, well, let's jump into the introduction. We have the excerpts we've chosen to read are going to give us time to chat with you a little bit and fill out some of the stuff that we can't read the whole book because it's a good thick book. But this book is it's the true story of your life, and You were a naive young Irish woman who embarked.
I think I still am today.
Embarked on the path of most resistance and danced and survived her way around 7 different countries. And that's actually a dream for some Americans, as you might know.
It's one of mine.
Yeah. She's got a very descriptive, dramatic, and often humorous Celtic road home that takes you on a journey of constant life adventures. Inspirational, captivating. It is a tale filled with the lilt of Irish laughter. It'll make your heart smile. So let's go with the introduction, Miss Ann
And
Doolin
just on
Fox.
that real quick, I was like that song, Supertramp song, Take the Long Way Home. I always took the long way home. But this is my introduction. Ain't No Mountain High Enough, Ain't No Valley Low Enough by Marvin Gaye. Ever since I was a little girl, growing up in the Irish capital city of Dublin, I always harbored a secret dream to learn foreign languages and travel and explore the world. Humble and tough beginnings would one day propel me forward, and that day came in July 1981. I ran away from home, my father's dominance in the early dawn, my mother bidding me farewell as I flew the nest. At a mere 18 years of age, I left the only life I had ever known and ventured across the Irish Sea to nearby London, England. Soon after, I realized that this girl had bigger and brighter life aspirations much farther afield. I would have gladly departed for Timbuktu, but settled instead for the world's fashion capital of Milan, Italy, as a launching point. Be careful sometimes what you wish for, as life decisions can often take you on both physical and emotional roller coasters. There were to be many dark moments ahead, especially in those early days when I seriously considered returning home. However, I would have only lived to regret that outcome. Throughout the following 12 years, until almost reaching the age of 30, I endured living and surviving in 7 different countries, all the while trying to achieve my main goal. What was that, you ask? To live the American dream. As you will soon read, I would have climbed any high mountain or crossed any low valley, river, etc. to reach that single goal. Would I make it come true, you ask? You'll just have to read on to find out. It's often said that we Irish are renowned for our musical, poetic attributes, great sense of humor, and storytelling, so you can be the judge of my Celtic road home. Before you begin, let me bestow to you the following Irish blessing along your life path. May the road rise to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face, the rains fall soft upon your fields, and until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. May God be with you and bless you. May you see your children's children. May you be poor in misfortune, rich in blessings. May you know nothing but happiness from this day forward. May the road rise to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the warm rays of sun fall upon your home, and may the hand of a friend always be near. May green be the grass you walk on. May blue be the skies above you. May pure be the joys that surround you. May true be the hearts that love you.
I have always loved hearing that.
Yeah. We used to sing that blessing after Mass in Catholic choir.
Really?
Yeah. I'll sing it for you sometime. I started to earlier.
I don't think we
just on,
scheduled that.
just on that subject, if you buy my Audible book, right after the introduction, there's a young lady that sings it.
Oh, she does?
And her voice is like Enya.
Oh, okay. Very wonderful.
And it goes a little bit like, may the road rise up to meet you. It goes like that, but her voice is way better than mine.
Yours is
Well, that's
pretty
nice.
good.
That's really good. All right, let's take a break. We'll be back with more Right Time Radio after this announcement.
M&M Decorating Center in Canyon City says it's time to think outside the box. From paint and stain, commercial or residential, to custom window coverings and custom flooring. When you think outside the box, you'll have your local M&M Decorating staff to help you solve decorative problems. Don't think big box. Think outside the box at M&M Decorating. They get it.
M&M Decorating Center. We get it.
From kittens to horses, the doctors at Rose Veterinary Hospital care for both small and large animals. They also see exotics now, too. The state-of-the-art hospital includes x-ray, ultrasound, and surgical capabilities. Dr. Rose and her team of experienced doctors, technicians, and staff have built a reputation rooted in preventative medicine and compassionate care. Go to Rose Veterinary on High Street in Canyon City, and you'll find skilled animal lovers determined to keep your pets happy and healthy. Make your appointment today at 275-1909.
KRLN weather, a high wind warning this afternoon. Sunny and warmer with west winds gusting 25 to 50 miles per hour, creating areas of blowing dust today, the high around 55. Mostly clear and windy this evening. Tonight's low near 17. Mostly sunny, cooling off again tomorrow with a high around 49. Our low this morning was 13 after a high of 35 degrees yesterday. 48 degrees currently at the weather station.
Radio 1400, KRLN.
We are back with Right Time Radio and more from the book by Ann Doolan Fox. It is called Celtic Road Home. Also, we want to thank Fremont Regional Hospice for sponsoring our show. If it wasn't for you guys, we could not be on the air, and we really, really appreciate that. So in this next section, we are going to read from this book, and we're going to start with chapter 3, which is about when Anne was in Milan, Italy, and Tom is actually going to read it for us. And she's been coaching him on some of the Italian words, so let's cross our fingers and hope you do really well.
All right, Chapter 3 of Celtic Road Home. Upon arrival at Milan's Stazione Centrale. Stazione Centrale. Amid a gray and gloomy mid-September morning, it soon became apparent that this was more of an industrial-looking city. Although the world's best fashion designers are located here, it lacked the elegance and beauty of Paris, the hustle and bustle of London, and the friendly charm of Dublin's fair city. We soon found ourselves in the chaos of morning rush hour while heading towards the taxi rank at the station entrance. Sleep-deprived and hungry, we eventually reached the exterior of Cinzia. I did this better in the rehearsal. Cinzia's apartment building in the quiet Milanese suburb. She muttered a quick buongiorno to the portero, he's the doorman, as we stumbled, well, okay, just me with my cases, toward the rickety old elevator that led us up to the 3rd floor. Most of the apartment buildings back then included gatekeepers who were very inquisitive. That's a nice word for nosy. While witnessing the daily comings and goings and basically knew everybody's business. Nowadays, they have probably been replaced by modern security systems. Who knows? As the door swung open, I was taken aback by the simple and basic decor of this elegant young lady's living quarters. My eyes soon fell upon a single repetitive item which became commonplace in each and every room. That was an ashtray. Whether glass, plastic, plain, or design, sometimes there were 2 within one area. Cinzia even had one in the bathroom, for goodness sake. In all my excitement and hasty London departure to explore the globe, I had overlooked the fact that Cinzia was a chain smoker, and perhaps a little bit on the psycho side to boot. The expression Italians like to call it is lunatica. Yes, a lunatic. Oh well, such had been the choice that I had made, and life opportunities would hopefully soon enough allow me to modify the final outcome. I would just need to be patient. A difficult undertaking at the best of times, but remember, all good things come to those who wait. After the first few days of settling in, it was decided that I needed to find a daytime job that would provide me with some much-needed income. Staying with Cinzia, rent-free, would be on the basis that I spoke and correct her English, while also assisting with some legal translations. Her father was a judge in the Milanese Municipal Court, and she would often translate court documents late into the night for multiple international cases. While browsing the Help Wanted section of the International Herald Tribune, we happily found an ad for a part-time nanny. Dialing the local number, I was pleasantly surprised to find that the lady of the house spoke English. A few hours later, I set out on a public transport for the very first time. It was challenging, to say the least, roaming around in a brand new city while unable to speak Italian. Feeling like I was competing for an Olympic medal, I expertly followed Cinzia's directions and found myself standing outside the correct building, all within record time. Of course, I was quizzed by the curious little lady at the entrance on where I was going, who I was, etc. Some foyers even had a little intercom system to announce your impending arrival. Now, that would really create a grand entrance. Rather than take yet another ancient and squeaky elevator, I instead chose the stairs and soon found myself ringing an antique doorbell. I was soon warmly greeted by a plainly dressed lady, as most Milanese women were incredibly put together, who spoke impeccable English. She introduced herself as Alessandra, was in her mid-30s, and self-employed as an architect. Having graduated from Oxford with an English mother, both she and her much older husband, Alessandro, 20 years her senior and also an architect, shared a 4-year-old son called Martino. The little boy had just awoken from an afternoon nap and wasn't, to put it mildly, in the best of moods for meeting new faces. Quickly deciding that I truly needed this job, as where else would I find a family with at least one member speaking English? I did my thing. That pleasant scenario would make the initial days in a new country so much more tolerable. Wouldn't you have done the same? I figured that Martino would become the least of my worries. After all, he was just a child. Alessandra and I hit it off so well that she quickly gave me a tour of the apartment and offered me a bite to eat. It was agreed upon that my first day would take place the following Monday, whereupon we would pick up Martino from his nearby preschool together. During the next few days, sharing the same living space as Cinzia was reaching a boiling point. Her mood swings would switch so drastically in such short periods of time that I never knew which Cinzia was home. Fortunately, for most of the day, I was left alone, which suited me just fine, but also cast huge regrets about having left London behind. Prior to my departure, one of the sweet Irish nuns had found me a job as a cashier for a Greek restaurant beside Victoria Station. The interview had gone fine, but I had declined the position as I had international stars in my eyes at the time. Right before leaving each morning, she would always position an intricate padlock on the rotary phone with her mistrust of my using it patently clear. I had been so desperate to call my sister back in London by then, if only to inform her that I was okay. However, I was afraid to ask Cinzia whenever she was home. Try as I might with screwdrivers, knives, and any tool I could find, I was completely incapable of removing that phone lock. Where was MacGyver now that I needed him? Throughout the daily waking hours, I would clear up dishes, tidy the living areas, bathroom, etc., while constantly emptying all those nasty and smelly ashtrays. Meanwhile, I was also basically trying to figure out a way to escape as soon as possible. Although Cinzia had studied psychology at the prestigious University of Padua, she seemed to exhibit multiple mental and emotional issues. Hence her constant mood swings that were starting to make me dizzy. In addition, if her chain smoking hadn't discouraged me from smoking for life, I'm not sure what else would have. Bright and early the following Monday morning, I headed for the metro to Alessandra's place. Exuding confidence on recalling the route, Monday to Friday duties would include getting Martino up and ready for Montessori preschool, which was a 10-minute walk away, and returning home to pick up his room, etc. At midday, I would collect him, stop by a nearby park, bring him home for lunch, and entertain him until nap time. Then it was time for dinner and a bath until his parents returned home from work. I mainly spoke to him in English, while also picking up some new Italian phrases here and there. If his parents were late, I would read him a story and put him to bed, which was not an easy feat. Martino was a precocious and spoilt little boy. But looking back on the situation today, I believe he acted out, as his parents were never home enough. Poverino. Poor little boy. One evening at the end of my first week babysitting Martino, I broke down in tears over dinner. I had a long and emotional discussion with Alessandra about my unbearable living conditions. All it took was a fruity glass of wine paired with some delicious cheeses and breads as I sobbed my heart out. She was very comforting and kind and immediately remedied the dreadful situation by offering me temporary accommodation in her apartment. It didn't take me long to pack up my things once I returned to Cincia's place, and I did so in record time. While quickly descending the stairs towards the entrance, before Cincia returned from working late, to hail a taxi, I was abruptly met by Marco, her boyfriend. Shocked to see me standing there with my cases and concerned about my not saying goodbye to Cincia or giving her an explanation, he began to question me. As the tears rolled down my cheeks once more, I explained to him in French that I had no other choice but thanked him for his concerns. He then helplessly watched me climb into the taxi that would take me to freedom. Thank goodness cell phones were not yet in existence, or she would have showed up at once, and that would have surely created a scene. Well, that is a scene, Miss Ann Doolin Fox.
You know, I should have said, actually, going back to the entrance, it was actually my exit.
Yeah, that's
my
right.
escape.
I was thinking, leaving without saying goodbye, isn't that known as an Irish goodbye?
No. I think it depends on the person that you're
American
saying goodbye
TV.
to. When you're escaping, I don't think a goodbye is really that necessary.
There you go.
So, Anne, Milan was your first overseas experience?
It was, and I think I mentioned to you a little bit earlier that it was the hardest chapter and actually the hardest part of my life, because it was my first time ever going away out of an English-speaking country, not to mention with a total stranger that I put my whole 100% trust in. So I was extremely naive. I learned a lot that first year. My mother nearly had a breakdown because I changed houses 9 times in a period of 11 months. Poor thing. Every time I'd say, Mom, don't write back to me, I'll just take my letter because I'm moving again. But it taught me a lot about strength and perseverance, and again, which is mainly the subject of the story within the story of the book, for the reader, is just to never give up, no matter what life
And
has.
this whole time you had the idea that somehow you're going to work your way to America?
Exactly.
Huh. Now, listeners, how much do we take this for granted?
Yeah, and how? What made you want to come to America?
I fell in love with America as a young girl. I could have been 8, 9, 10 years old. As soon as all those shows hit the screens, of course, in black and white TV, because my dad had black and white, whether it was the Waltons, whether it was Kojak, whether it was How the West Was Won, which, by the way, can I just say, I love this town, Canyon City. We took a drive last fall from Canyon City through Salida up to Telluride, and it was fall colors. And every time I see these beautiful, beautiful mountains and canyons, and I understand why it's called Canyon City, I'm taken back to those days watching Bonanza, How the West Was Won, all those beautiful things, which all the West is of, and I couldn't want to live in a more beautiful place. I thought Colorado Springs was pretty, but Canyon City, oof.
And in those shows and some of the old movies, you actually do see their surrounding areas.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes.
It's just amazing.
Absolutely
So
spectacular.
it was the romantic image of the United States that got you?
Well, it was traditionally New York. New York was the place, like Kojak, even...
And even fashion and movies.
Everything was happening. And I think every young person around the world wants to go to New York in your 20s. But you get to your 30s, you're like, oh, there's just too many people.
Yeah.
Even going to Denver, it's great for an afternoon.
Yeah.
But Southern Colorado, you can't beat it. It's like living in heaven.
Yeehaw! Let's take another commercial break, and we'll be right back with more of Celtic Road Home by Anne Doolin.
If you're going out to eat but you're not sure where you want to go, try Mr. Ed's Family Restaurant right here in Canyon City. When you get there, you'll get fast service, a large amount of choices for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, and a very friendly staff that'll take care of you. If you haven't tried their giant cinnamon rolls in the morning, you've got to try them. If it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner, you'll always find something delicious at Mr. Ed's Family Restaurant, Canyon City.
Have you heard of the 3 times around? Customers have told us that it's the fewest number of times they need to go around or from the Heart Gift Shop before they even come close to seeing everything. Walking around only once or twice, I guarantee there will be something you missed. Customers also tell us every time they come in, there is something new. So come in and try our 3 times around. Then come back and try it again. Only then will you know why our customers love From the Heart Gift Shop at St. Thomas More.
We might forget names and faces, dates and places, but God remembers those who are His through faith in Christ. To God, they are unforgettable. Dr. Dean Natesty says, as we remember Jesus in faith, even more so does God remember us. Hear Dr. Natesty's message, Unforgettable, this week on The Lutheran Hour.
The Lutheran Hour is brought to you by St. John's Lutheran Church in Canyon City. Listen Sunday mornings at 8 a.m. here on 1400 KRLN.
Star Country 104.5, playing a better variety of country and leading the way in high school sports coverage. Proud to bring you live coverage of high school basketball 2020.
Seconds on the clock. Aragon kicks left side. Caparici. Another 3. Switch. Way downtown. Switch. Another Stoners Rock Block 3.
Tuesday night, join us for an East Central girls-boys doubleheader. Our pregame show begins at 5:40. We'll tip it off at 6 for the girls. Boys follow at 7:30. Online at network1sports.com and Star Country.
We are back with Right Time Radio and more of this amazing story of Ann Doolin Fox and her, shall we say, adventure from Dublin all the way to America. And we're going to skip over to chapter 10. And before we do, I want to tell you that you really need to buy the book because she has got some fun pictures from her life that it just brings it all, together. And it's a great book. And then at the end, she's got some recipes and just all kinds of stuff.
For Irish coffee. And
Irish
what's
coffee.
The other
Sherry
one?
trifle.
Sherry trifle. Yum. Okay. So really, you need to buy the book. And we'll talk about how you can do that at the end of the show. So right now, we're going to go to chapter 10. And it is set in
The Hague, the Netherlands.
Netherlands. Okay.
Yes.
And so take it away, and then when we're done, you're going to tell us one of the more special things that happened in this segment of your life.
Okay, this takes place between March 1991 during the Gulf War, which you'll probably remember very well, and it ends in October 1993 with this beautiful return to this land that I love.
Mm-hmm.
Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam was chic, organized, and incredibly efficient, and felt like stepping into modern times, especially coming from the laid-back Spanish way of life. You could hear English spoken just about everywhere, and without an accent, I might add. Dutch people in general usually speak at least 3 languages, if not more, as they live in close proximity to Germany, Belgium, France, and England just a hop across the channel. What immediately captivated me about this new place was the friendliness of the Dutch. The most beautiful flowers and plants I had ever seen. Bikes everywhere. Old streets with tall and colorful narrow houses. Cobblestone squares with historic museums like Van Gogh. Winding canals full of boats, houseboats, and barges. The air was filled with aromas of shawarma, kebabs, pancakes, and yes, even coffee shops. Not real coffee shops, but where you could select your own marijuana flavors, etc. Still is today, I might say. Amsterdam was a hodgepodge of so many things to do and see, you could never call it boring. It was also pristinely clean wherever you went. I believe Switzerland is one of the cleanest countries in the world. I spent the rest of Saturday evening getting unpacked at the Motel Hornwyk, which was within a short distance away from the European Patent Office, where my big interview was to take place at 9 the following Monday morning. I had traveled on the train from Amsterdam to The Hague, about an hour, and then taken a 30-minute taxi drive to the motel, which was in darkness by the time I got there. I ate a quiet dinner at the motel cafe, where the waitress took my order in impeccable English. Wow. What place was this? I liked it a whole lot so far. When I turned on the TV, there were channels from every nearby country, even the BBC. All you got in Spain was Spanish TV and foreign shows with the same old dubbing actors. They must have made a fortune. The next morning, after given directions from the front desk, I caught the light rail tram to Central Station in The Hague, and from there boarded a train for Amsterdam. I was intent on visiting the house of Anne Frank, as I had loved reading The Diary of Anne Frank as a teenager, admiring her incredible courage. Boy, did I need some of that. The house tour surpassed all of my expectations, and as I stepped back outside into the chilly Amsterdam streets, I decided then and there that this was going to be my next step in life. Be careful what you wish for. All I had to do now was to convince my interviewers that following Monday. Since Christmas was only weeks away, every florist, almost on every corner in Holland, stocked the most exquisite little plants and florals, decorated with tons of different festive accents, from ribbons, birds, bells, and anything your mind could imagine. What a sight. It was hard not to buy all of them, as it was impossible to choose. I picked out a couple for Christmas gifts, grabbed a hot chocolate on such a chilly evening, and headed back to the motel in The Hague. At dinner in the restaurant that evening, I got chatting to a young German man at the next table, who was also going to be interviewed the following day at the same place. We decided to share a taxi early in the morning, as we both had similar meeting times. Thank heavens we had met the evening before, as he gave me some really valuable advice. That advice was that 3 official languages used and spoken at the European Patent Office were English, French, and German. That notion had totally escaped my mind, so when I got back to the room, I watched an entire movie in French, since I had not even uttered a word of it for a good 8 years or more. Thankfully, I have an ear for languages, so watching the movie would indeed save me the following day. Extremely grateful for that young man's timely advice, I was able to pass the written part of the French to English translation test. He passed his from German to English the next day. We were both notified shortly before noon by Lily Shears, the lady I had spoken to by phone from Madrid a few weeks before. She then directed us to a large crowded cafeteria where we could have lunch, also advising us to be ready for our separate 2:00 interviews. How nerve-wracking. Each of us such a bundle of nerves we could hardly touch our food. The time soon passed, however, and we bade each other farewell and good luck as we set off in opposite directions for our respective interviews. Our paths would never cross again, but he could have quite possibly gone to work at one of the other EPO locations in Munich, Berlin, Germany, or Vienna, Austria. I was soon led into a small office and directed to a chair facing a panel of 4. 3 men and a woman who also happened to be Lily, head of personnel. It was quite a scary environment, but they soon made me feel as comfortable as possible, and the process commenced. One of the many questions was, why do you want to move to Holland from Spain, where the weather is so much better and the food is great? I answered as convincingly, did I tell you I'm very convincing, as possible, as though my whole future life depended on the final answer. Much as I have loved living in Spain for the past 6 to 7 years, I have always longed to return to Northern Europe, as it feels like home to me. The only difficult questions came from Lily, of course. The women are always the toughest, right? As to what past and recent office experience I had held, since the bulk of my time away from Northern Europe had taken place within the teaching English field. Let me just state, she was as tough as they come. It felt like a Washington, D.C. congressional hearing. And I needed desperately to persuade her, most of all. With bated breath and the interview reaching its own conclusion, I secretly held onto positive vibes and hopes of a positive outcome. Not to mention, I was sweating bullets as I was once again led to yet another office on the 4th floor. But this time, however, it was to collect the reimbursement of my travel expenses in Dutch guilders. This was before the euro, which amounted to about $1,500 in cash, which was not to be sneezed at and extremely generous. And this was back in 1991. As I boarded the plane back to Madrid that very same evening, I had brought my weekend case to the interview. Along with mainly business passengers, I prayed once again that I would soon get the chance to move to this fascinating and beautiful country. I wanted it so badly that I never gave up hope. Those funds received in Holland meant that I could now buy a plane ticket back home to Dublin that Christmas. As my mom and I sat in the kitchen one late December evening, warming by the gas oven, I confided in her my deepest desire to leave Spain behind for good, and how much I needed that job in Holland. With her words of wisdom, she advised me that I had done the very best I could, and now would just have to wait. Did I tell you already that patience is not one of my strengths? Typical Irish.
That's great. All right, now tell us, what was the super wonderful thing that happened during chapter 10?
Towards the end of the chapter, I happened to meet my future husband, Jimmy. He was based nearby in Germany, and we met in Maastricht in Holland. And we made our Irish-American treaty because the Maastricht Treaty 10 years before was famous for creating the euro.
Oh, okay.
So we made our own treaty.
So, and that's the handsome gentleman sitting next to you.
That's him.
Hey, Jimmy.
Hello, how you doing?
He's a Southern gentleman from Mississippi.
She's the better half, though.
So that's how you made it into the book, Jimmy.
Exactly. That's how I made it, yes.
And that's how I made it back to America, most importantly.
Right.
Well, great. I think we'll take another break and we'll chat. But before we take that break, I want to say again, I got to travel in Europe when I was in right around my early 20s, and how did you? I have a way that I did it, but how did you just do it? I mean, it takes money to get over there. It takes, you feel like you're just stepping out into empty air because you don't, like you with the first one in Milan. Cinzia, you didn't hardly know her at all, and it didn't work out very well with Cinzia.
I just always lucked out. My main determination from leaving home in the beginning, as you'll know from chapter 1, was I had a very, very domineering father. But I always literally, some good friend of mine who loves the book said, you literally lived by the seat of your pants. And that's literally what I did. I always believed in a positive outcome.
Like it really does.
It's the only way to live.
And I think, I know there are listeners out there that are thinking, man, I would love to do that, but they just don't. And the thing is, we just did.
I got out of my comfort zone.
How did you do it, Tom? You said you had your way.
I saved up just enough to get over there, and I bought a Eurail pass. I slept on trains and in youth hostels.
Best way.
And I did go to the Netherlands, by the way, and that is a different world.
Absolutely.
Red light districts are legal.
I think my son would move there. My son would move there tomorrow in a heartbeat.
It is a crazy place. I can't even say the first experience I had when I moved into the youth hostel. I can't say on the radio because it was just so shocking.
It was a certain part of town.
No, it was not. It was not that part of town, but it was
eye-opening.
Yes, it was eye-opening.
That's a good way to phrase it. Yeah. All right. Well, we are going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to conclude this story because we're jumping around with excerpts, and we will be back after these messages.
Have you talked to your family about the medical care you'd like to receive when facing a serious illness? Advanced Care Planning can help you talk about what kind of care is most important to you. Fremont Regional Hospice can help you get that care. To learn more about what hospice can do for you, contact Fremont Regional Hospice at 719-275-4315 or stop by 1439 Main Street in Canyon City. Fremont Regional Hospice, your hometown hospice.
Fremont Veterinary Hospital knows you care about your pet and they're part of your family. At Fremont Veterinary Hospital, they have amazing pet patient services, so you will have peace of mind that your pet is happy and healthy as possible, and in the care of people who care about your pet. They're a pet hospital offering pet health services, boarding services, and overall health and wellness checkups. To learn more, call Fremont Veterinary Hospital today at 719-269-3349. That's 276-3349. Or visit 2118 Florence Street, Canyon City.
KRLN weather, a high wind warning this afternoon. Sunny and warmer with west winds gusting 25 to 50 miles per hour, creating areas of blowing dust. A high today around 55. Mostly clear, windy until midnight, low tonight near 17. Sunny, cooling off again tomorrow with a high around 49. 35 was our high yesterday with a low this morning of 13. Now from the Weather Center, 54 degrees.
Talk Radio 1400, KRLN.
All right, we are back with Right Time Radio, and we want to thank everybody for listening every Friday at 10 o'clock. Today's author is so amazing. Her name is Ann Doolan Fox, and we actually ran into her at the library during a book signing, and we've just been attached to her ever since.
Can't get rid of her.
We like her. No, we like her. I love people with accents other than mine. You know, she said to me a while ago, "You're from Texas, aren't you?" I went, "Yeah, I have to fess up.
I'm getting there with my
fess up."
American accents.
Okay.
I love it.
The next thing that we're going to read is actually not from her book. It's actually from a blog that she was asked to write, but it's so fitting to end today's story with, and then we're going to talk about where you can get her book and what it costs and all kinds of stuff like that. So, take it away, Anne.
Thank you, Lynn. This was something I was invited to write a few years ago from a place called Path to Empathy. They're based in Monument, and they go into schools and they teach our children how to have empathy. It's a very lovely organization. They invited me to write about my story to citizenship. So this is it, Path to Citizenship. America, land of opportunity, land of the free, has both captivated and inspired world travelers like me for many generations, be it past, present, or future. It remains the most charitable country on the planet, with empathetic hearts and pocketbooks freely open in giving to those who are less fortunate. It is just the American way, and one of the main reasons why I love this country. Whether confronting natural disasters such as tornadoes, or being generous with GoFundMe pages, the outpouring never ceases to amaze. Please believe me when I tell you that this world has so many people who dwell in a permanent state of desolation, despair, and hopelessness. And we are so fortunate to live here in the US. The path of gratitude will always take you back to the path to empathy, as living the American dream provides us all with so very much to be grateful for. My path to America began while growing up as a young girl in my homeland city of Dublin, Ireland. Mesmerized by the idea of living in the US someday, I faithfully watched American TV shows from the 1970s. My dad and I became besotted with shows like The Brady Bunch, The Waltons, Little House on the Prairie, and the list goes on. We were both entranced with how affectionate the Yanks, that's what we call you in Europe, were so often professing their emotions with the word, "I love you." Most Europeans are not so demonstrative in that way, so it was refreshing for us Northern Europeans, to say the least. For 12 years, from 1981 to 1993, I lived in 6 European countries while adjusting, not always successfully, I might add, to the variety of cultures, customs, and inhabitants of each nation. In all of those separate locations, there was always kindness and open hearts to be found during my dark days or times of need. But I never lost my desire to live in the USA. In October of 1993, along with my beloved future husband and a 90-day visa, we drove to the INS offices, now known as ICE, in Southern California, and so began the 5-year process of becoming a U.S. citizen. Once inside, the entire space was packed with long lines in every direction of immigrants like myself. I'd never seen so many immigrants in one place. The paperwork, photos, forms, and a multitude of signings, and this is before I signed books, became a very lengthy process with many return visits back to the lines, the same people in that familiar building. Patience soon became a virtue once again. Within a month or two, my green card arrived in the mail. Can I tell you it's actually not green? And I was soon able to find work and happily blended into the American way of life. I moved to Colorado Springs in the summer of 1995, and in order to continue the process, I followed up with visits and more paperwork at the IN office in Denver. In year 4, I was advised to study 100 questions and answers on U.S. history and civics, and did so in a diligent manner each and every day. A few months later, I was to be tested at the ICE office while answering a total of 13 questions out of 100, and needed to get a minimum of 7 correct. I was so nervous as the very serious-looking male official began asking the questions, but knew my subject so well that I soon relaxed. To my relief, within a few short minutes, I'd already accurately answered the very first 7 questions, so that was so good. There was no need to go further. Then there was a brief oral and written exam to ensure that I could correctly comprehend and converse in English. The paperwork, lines, studying, and signings were finally over. Next to come was the date of the swearing-in ceremony. We were given the date for a few months later and waited with sweet anticipation. An official letter soon arrived in the mail stipulating the ceremony would be taking place promptly at 9 in the morning on Saturday, September 26, 1998. Arriving about an hour early, just to be safe, I took my place in the second row along with about 100 other future citizens from all corners of the world. As we found our seats, we were each handed a small American flag and a congratulatory word. The ceremony soon began as we answered in unison while asked whether we would pledge allegiance to the flag and defend our new native land. Each and every answer was a resounding yes. The national anthem played as we all proudly sang, "Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light," and "The home of the brave, my home." We were pronounced to be U.S. citizens, and the room erupted into applause while excited, joyful hugs were given all around the room. We had made it. This day is precious to me, and with so much tension in the world, we need to remember we're all human, we all have hopes and dreams, no matter the color of our skin or where we come from. This great country was founded on these principles. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. You can blame the Declaration of Independence on that. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Declaration of Independence, July 4th, 1776. As I exited that building in September of 98, my toddler son Ryan asked, "You American now, Mommy?" With tears of joy streaming down my cheeks, I gratefully responded, "Yes, honey, I sure am."
Wow.
That's great.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So you notice that says it guarantees us the pursuit, right to pursue happiness.
Mm-hmm.
Did you find it, Miss Anna?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. In fact, I mentioned to you earlier, Mary Tyler Moore was my idol growing up. So I felt like as I was coming out the door singing, "You're gonna make it after all," and I did.
Throw your hat.
She said her friend.
But it wasn't windy, and I wasn't wearing a hat.
That's great. Makes me proud to be an American.
Yeah, and I think I see so many people that very interesting contrast with what you just read there. So many people that what was the organization that helps people that
Path to Empathy, and you can find them in Monument. Just look up pathtoempathy.com, and you can actually write a blog on there. It's called Our Shoes Blog. You take a picture of your shoes and you write a story that somehow brings you to that place of gratitude. They'll take blogs from everybody.
That's neat.
Wow. But the human experience is, some people do feel so hopeless and desperate, and that's what the Path to Empathy is trying to do, is to reinstill hope and compassion for each other.
They go out into our schools and they teach our children how to have empathy, which is a beautiful thing. Catch children when they're young.
Yeah,
it's important.
Definitely.
But it's very interesting that, sometimes a dream will keep you going. and it did for you for 12 years of wandering around Europe and trying to get here. And then, but once you've accomplished that dream, sometimes that's the next step is you made it here. You're done. But you're still happy.
I always knew this book was within me because I would tell stories and my friends would say, you need to write this down.
Mm-hmm. So now that you've achieved this dream, is there another dream that you have? We didn't rehearse any of this.
I'm actually living my dream. My dream actually right now through this book, I didn't realize while writing it, is actually it's inspiring people. And once I realized it was inspiring people to fulfill their goals, I want to stay on this journey and keep doing that.
That's great.
It's fulfilling.
Well, and with that note, where can they get your book?
You can get it here in Canyon City at the REM Gallery. Mary Shell has a few copies there. You can also get it at the library, most libraries around the state. But more importantly, it's actually on sale going forward, 33% off on Amazon for $9.95 for the book and $2.99 for the Kindle. Yes.
Yeah, and then you'll also have a hard copy.
Yes.
And an audio book, too.
I have an audio, which I will never repeat that again. It was hard work, but it was worth it.
Yeah,
and it's
she
my
read
voice.
it herself,
Yeah.
yes. And the hard copy is $27.95. So all of that's available on Amazon, at the libraries, and then at REM, downtown Canyon City. So do go out and get you one. It's worth getting. Besides the story being amazing, like I said, it's got pictures and recipes, and it's just a really good story, and I'm so happy to have met you, Anne.
Thank you so much.
And you have some speaking engagements coming up, too?
I do, yes. I'll be at Barnes & Noble on Briargate Boulevard on the 15th of March.
In Colorado Springs.
Just 2 days before St. Patrick's Day. I'll be at the East Library in Colorado Springs Sunday, the 19th of April, the week after Easter Sunday, and then in Alamosa and Pagosa Springs in the second week of May.
Okay, and they can get in touch with you at
CelticRoadHome.com.
I say it wrong, I apologize.
That's okay. You're just a Rod Stewart fan because he's got his Celtics football team in Scotland.
That's
okay. I forgive you.
CelticRoad.com. Or CelticRoadHome.com.
Thank you.
Okay, and you're on Facebook?
I am.
Okay.
Yes.
And so that's...
They can go under Celtic Road Home and you'll see my Facebook page.
And that's her Facebook page. So do that. Go connect with her because she's a really neat person to know.
Thank you very much. Gurav Mila Mahagat, as we say in Irish, a thousand thank yous, Gurav Mila Mahagat.
Well, that's what I was going to say is thank you, Anne Doolin Fox, and thank you, Jimmy, too, for accompanying your wife.
You're quite welcome.
Yeah, thanks for coming in. As we wrap up, first of all, we want to say if you want to be on our show, you need to write. We always really encourage you to write a radio drama, something like The Shadow or Burns and Allen, something like that. And we'll get the voice actors. We've got lots of talent in Fremont County, so we'd love for you to do that and submit it to righttimeradio@gmail.com. You can hear today's broadcast once again on righttimeradio.my-free.website.
Right.
And that will be under previous broadcasts, and Lynn will have that posted in about probably by the end of the day.
Yeah, about 3 o'clock.
But we always say tomorrow just to be safe. She's always really good about that. Also, we have a big party. I want to just mention this since we have a big party on Facebook on next Tuesday, January 21st, starting at 3 Mountain Standard Time for the book series Beyond the Veil. Beyond the Veil has got 4 books out already, and we are going to be doing that starting at 3 o'clock on Tuesday. So join us on, what's that called? Beyond the Veil.
Beyond the Veil Readers Group.
Readers Group, thank you.
Search for it, you'll find it.
And we need to wrap it up.
That's also Ireland's Independence Day.
Delicious great times.
See you next
Pizza
week.
Madness. 509 Main Street, Canyon City. This is 1400 AM, KRLN, Canyon City, Victor.